per year on the subscription for Zoom, it's a lot more. It's a lot more to take for a public school than it is for a private school, because they simply do not have the resources that it requires for them to acquire that option, right? Take for example Mexico. Let's not go too far. In Mexico, 43, according to the Centro de Investigación Política Pública, 43.9% of the population lives in multi-dimensional poverty, while 8.5% of the population lives in extreme poverty. I think it's safe to say that these people are not going to be worrying about what next product comes out, what next car comes out, if they have the latest shoes because of this new technology. The problem is not that they're not innovating. The problem is that to acquire this innovation, you have to have the resources, and that's not going to change whether we impose a tax percentage on billionaires or not, because people are still not going to be able to have access to those new creations, new innovation things.
Thank you. What's your proposition number 3?
So proposition number 3 is that this system helped create the billionaires, and I believe they have the obligation, the responsibility to participate in this same system that created them by paying taxes. Now, we do not want billionaires to become poor, neither middle class. They're still going to be rich. We're just saying that, let's say, for example, the proposal that Senator Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren had. They were estimating a tax on wealth around 3%. Now, let's say that we apply that tax on the wealthiest man on earth, Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos' worth right now is $160 billion. Let's say that in 1982, we started applying a 3% tax on wealth yearly, annually. So in today's time, Jeff Bezos, instead of having $160 billion, he would have $87 billion. He still would be within the 10 wealthiest persons on the world, even with that tax, since the 80s. Now, there are responsible billionaires who, there are responsible who are willing to comply with this kind of taxation. Take, for example, Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is the 3rd wealthiest man alive on earth. And on 2011, he wrote an article in the New York Times saying, "Stop coddling the super rich." What he talked mostly about on this paper was that he was acknowledging that he was being taxed by the government less than his secretary. His secretary was being taxed 37% of her income, while he was being taxed 17% of his income. Now, we're not saying that they should be poor or middle class. They are still going to be rich. We only say that they have a responsibility to contribute to the system by paying these taxes, which are not pretty important. Well, good.
Thank you. What's your rebuttal on this argument?
Wealth tax not only affects the super rich, but it can affect the nation's prosperity. A wealth tax will lead politically minded billionaires to shelter their fortunes in tax-exempt foundations, which they can use to promote their views. As Harvard economist Larry Summers states, that outcome will increase the political influence of billionaires, not reduce it. Taxing wealth is much more difficult than taxing income. Of the 12 European countries that had wealth taxes in 1990, only 3 still do. This is due to the fact that wealth is more difficult to measure. As previously stated, 9 of those countries abandoned the taxation of the super rich. This is because these laws were ineffective and expensive to administer. Ergo, the taxes failed to raise such revenue because wealthy individuals easily moved their assets across borders to avoid taxation. Today, only Switzerland, Norway, Belgium, and Spain still have wealth taxes. Why is that? Why is it like that? Is it because the taxation of the super rich doesn't work?
Okay, thank you. Now, let's hear your position number 3.
Okay. Billionaires make our lives better. Entrepreneurs make our lives better by introducing new products or by lowering the cost of existing products. In the jargon of economics, they create economic surplus. In a classic study, Yale economist William Nordhaus estimated the competition ensures that entrepreneurs keep just 2.2% of the economic surplus they create. Who gets the other 97.8%? Us. Because billionaires create much more economic surplus than other entrepreneurs, they can make much larger contributions to our happiness. As also stated, the wealthy donate large amounts to charitable endeavors. The top 1% of earners make 1/3 of the nation's charitable donations, while the top 1.4 wealth owners provide 86% of all charitable donations made at death. Many of the wealthy are actively engaged in social and educational pursuits aiming at lifting up the less fortunate. So we can say that billionaires are not selfish. They try as they can to make our lives better.
Thank you. Okay, let's hear your rebuttal.
Although it is true that entrepreneurs can sometimes receive a low percentage of what they create, it is important to differentiate between an entrepreneur who's going out into the market and an entrepreneur who's been on the market for years and is doing well. Take, for example, Apple or Tesla, right? Whose products right now are extremely costly and have been on the market for years now. As said before, innovation is not accessible for everybody. And although it is smart, the new creations that they're making, they're not meant for every public. There's a distinct market in which they're targeted, right? Take, for example, the Tesla Model 3, which starts at $84,490, and that is the cheapest model. Now you can't really speak for everybody's better quality of life if you're taking that into account, because not everybody's gonna be buying a Tesla, right? Even the most fortunate sometimes doubt it. And if the price is going down, it's not really true. Constant inflation, prices don't really lower. Take, for example, with the pandemic, take the graphics card, for example, that designers use to make their computers run better, to perform their jobs better in the industry. This card started out with a launch price of $569 when it was on the year 2020, I'm talking specifically about the Gigabyte RTX 3070 model, which was at a launch price of $569. A year later, this same card was being sold at $749 when other two models had already came out, which is not only did the price not lower, but it rose almost by $200. As for third-party dealers, we're selling it at about $1,279 and $1,212. So again, it didn't really lower anything, even though new models came out. The prices of old models also came up because of inflation. So just to conclude this counter argument, the introduction of new products to the market doesn't really diminish the other products, because companies still want to make money off of it. People are still making money of the older generation of products, such as maybe the same phones, the same tennis shoes. So we can't really say that improves the quality of life of everybody, because only those fortunate enough to have the money to spend it can buy these kinds of products. Going back to what we said about a few minutes ago, half of the population of Mexico is probably not going to be thinking about buying these latest innovations. They're probably going to be thinking about buying whatever they need to make it to the next stage. So although these new creations are smart, they're not accessible for every public. So we can't speak on everybody's behalf that the billionaires are making lives better, because not everybody can have access to these products.
Thank you all for your arguments and rebuttals. And now, from hearing all of your arguments and rebuttals, I have typed a bit of resolutions that could help both of our sides. Okay, first, there's no need to raise the taxes. I mean, it's unfair, it would create.
That's an opinion.
I mean, let me state, it's a resolution, okay?
It's an opinion.
I'm the moderator, please keep silence. Let's keep silence. Thank you. Okay. It would create a sort of a war between classes. So let's establish a way in which they can donate their goods and services to government programs, just like there is in legal terms pro bono, where they can take a case without fees to the client. Okay, now the part where they say the billionaires give jobs to the people. Okay, first of all, the jobs aren't too much proper. The salaries, the insurance, the hours per week, the days per week are kind of inhumane in most of these kind of companies, because this is the way on how the billionaires are getting their money. So let's say that each employee needs to be assigned in a union, such as Starbucks or Amazon, where they are working in the proper conditions in the jobs. Okay, now in the part where when they said that the billionaires are bribing, in quotes, to the politicians so they can be negotiating in which kind of political party they are advantaging in their ways. So let's create a newspaper or magazine where it's independent, where they don't advertise or use any kind of exaggeration, where they can invite clients to learn to read their newspapers, the headlines. Okay, now, although private enterprises does create jobs, innovation's powers relationship to availability of products to the general public is questionable. On many occasions, the product of these innovative enterprises is considered a luxury good or service. The existence of this enterprise does not correlate to the general public quality of life. At the same time, adding taxes, similar to the taxes proposed by Bernie Sanders, 2 or 3%, does not in reality affect this innovation capacity. The quality of the product on the market keeps improving while the state has more resources available for social development, which supports lower and middle class socio-economic development.
Grade. There are 6 grades, and there is 3 groups for better growth. It's not the same option that we, for example, at private schools have to enable what people need for academic growth. For example, on Zoom, the free option doesn't have all the benefits that the pro option has, which is at about $150 per year. Now, let's imagine in that of a public school, for example. Public schools, students don't enroll in them by paying the public schools, right? So imagine this, it's...
Good evening. Tonight we're going to have a debate about our economic system, if it should impose big taxes on billionaires. We all remember when Bernie Sanders ran for the presidential campaign with the mantra popularized that said billionaires should not exist. Okay, this statement highlighted was because of the immorality of the wealth inequality created by our capitalist system. Tonight in the society, the world, has weak labor protections, strong intellectual property protections, low tax rates, and government-funded research. There are examples such as Bill Gates or Steve Jobs that if it weren't from the government, we wouldn't have these products available for the society. First, we're going to start with the proposition of the side in which they say that they should elevate the taxes to the rich. Go ahead.
Okay, so the first proposition that we have is that greater taxes on the rich, on these billionaires, would allow the government or the system to create the infrastructure to allow middle and lower class to rise in the economic ladder. Now, we all know that there are some social programs, like for example in the United States, Medicare, or a Mexican example, Seguro Popular, which give this social security to the people, to the low-income people on health. Now, stopping worrying about these kind of issues like health or maybe vivienda, housing, will allow them to develop in other certain aspects of their lives. A pretty good example that we had is Howard Schultz. Howard Schultz was the CEO of Starbucks, and right now his net worth is estimated in $3.4 billion. But let me tell you that first, he grew up in public housing development. And I want to state the question. Would he, in his lower social economical condition, would have been able to establish his, to improve in this social economic ladder without this government-supported housing? Now, when I say government-supported housing, obviously, I'm saying tax-supported housing. Thank you.
So in counter-argument, governments will focus on other things rather than on services helping humans in need, and only a small amount of the higher taxes will benefit the minorities in those in need. And well, in conclusion, increasing tax to the rich will not assure the lower and middle class to climb up the ladder.
Okay, thank you for your counter-argument. Now, let's go
In opposition
with the
to
opposition. Let me talk first. Wait a second. Let's be patient. We have time. Okay, go ahead with your opposition one.
Okay, first of all, having billionaire people provide jobs, because Mark Cuban is an American billionaire entrepreneur who owns companies such as Dallas Mavericks, Maps Foundation, Maps Gaming, Texas Legends, and others amounting in total of 204, which can be seen in markcubancompanies.com. The most impressive thing about him is that he has also invested in more than 300 startups supporting thousands of people economically. For example, Elon Musk is a South African-American industrial engineer, entrepreneur who co-founded PayPal, Aerospace, and SpaceX. He currently runs Tesla and Neuralink, the boring company, and recently has purchased Twitter. According to Electrek.co, Tesla has over 100,000 employees worldwide and is creating more jobs by opening factories such as Gigafactory Berlin and Texas. Not only do they support their employees, but for other companies they have to work. As an example, in order to build the Gigafactories, they need materials from suppliers and construction companies, which is moving the economy.
Thank you. Now let's go for the rebuttal.
Alright, seeing both people that you mentioned are big billionaires, I think we're missing the point on how small impact the increasing taxes would have, right? Mark Cuban's estimated wealth, according to Forbes, is about $4.7 billion. If we take the 3% that we're talking about of raising, it's merely $141 million, which is not really impactful on his net worth, right? So even when imposing that small percentage of tax rate up, you wouldn't really be impeding in him opening new jobs, looking to expand his business. He's probably gonna get that money worth from his employers back in a short amount of time. Now talking about Elon Musk, it's the biggest billionaire that there is, with a net worth of about estimated $116.8 billion. Of course, his tax rate is gonna go up because his net worth is also higher. It starts at $6,504 million. And again, just as the same case with Mark Cuban, it's not really gonna matter that small increase in tax payment, because it doesn't impede him, again, from spending, well, that small amount of money, which is not really small, but in the perspective of things, it's not going to impede him on giving more jobs to Americans, right? Or any other country would. And also about giving more jobs, the World Economic Forum informed that right now it's 30% of these jobs are covered by machines, right? So it's calculated that by 2025, this proportion rate is going to be 50-50, where 50% are going to be covered by people, and the other 50% are going to be covered by technology, new technology that's going to come out, right? So we can't really say that it's going to increase in jobs, because these jobs can also be covered by the machine, because since these two people are big billionaires, they can cover the costs for building these new technologies and these new machines that are going to cover the cost of human production.
Thank you. Now, let's go for our proposition number 2.
The proposition number 2 is that billionaires are endangering democracy. Politicians, obviously, they need money to run their campaigns, and obviously they create these fundraising events. Lower class, middle class people obviously are not able to provide resources for these sort of campaigns. So who are politicians going to rely to? Well, billionaires, rich people, obviously. right? And well, billionaires are going to donate their money, but actually, in real life, what is going to happen is that they're going to expect something in return. And what are they expecting? Well, legislation on their favor. There's a reason right now why they're not paying as much taxes in a percentage, in a fraction, as low and middle class people. And well, the consequences of this political scenario is that, well, the system starts drifting away from a democracy and starts becoming an oligarchic system where wealthy people take decisions and politicians comply because they're being, well, financed by billionaires.
Okay, what is your rebuttal about this argument?
Well, in our opinion, far from being a negative influence in democratic societies, it's something positive because they provide counterweight to mobs and tribes. They also fight against special interests on behalf of more diffuse interests. They counteract more ideological, what's this word?
Student, please.
Homogeneous and powerful groups, including the press and academia. For example, Tom Steyer, a billionaire hedge fund funder, is a progressive who made his first big appearance in national democratic politics in 2014, with a multi-million-dollar effort to put climate change at the center of the political debate. Also, the foundation of George Soros is mostly extensively on fostering democracy and protecting voters' rights. And, well, in conclusion, none of these means that we should be ruled by a very rich alone, nor should the inequality in influence translate to inequality in voting. But the wealthy, constituting a tiny fraction of voters, are not just a dynamo of our prosperity. They are also important to civic life that allows for prosperity, order, and openness. They make democracy smarter, more stable, and less insular.
Thank you. Now, let's go with the petition number 2.
As innovation arises, one's way of life improves. There are many reasons why creating goods and services is difficult. But the most important part of this is that money comes into play. Who has money? The billionaires are able to fund and improve in the aspect of innovation, creativity, prototyping, testing, experimenting, interviewing, as an example. This makes innovation be more accessible in the workplace, letting even more products in society that could help someone's lives. Overall, individual firms matter more than large firms are good for growth. A large, highly productive firm is more efficient than 1,000 smaller firms, and development is inspired when resources are drawn to the best firms. The emergence of rich people and rich companies in poor countries is a reflection of a healthy economy. Furthermore, billionaires were giving more money away than any time in history, as the number of 209 billionaires publicly donated a total of $7.2 billion between March and June in the year 2020 to tackle the COVID pandemic. So, as we can say, it's pretty beneficial for us to have billionaires in our lives.
What's your say on this?
Alright, so the problem with this is that innovation doesn't exactly improve on quality of life, doesn't directly, because not everybody has the resources for access to this